Hello friends, I am Rahat Hassan. I am assistant professor in the Department of Political Science, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. I welcome all of you in this particular MOOC course on international relation in a changing world. This course is coordinated by Professor Mirza Asmar Beg and Dr. Mohammad Rahat Hassan is the co-coordinator of this particular course. The title of this particular course is International Relation in a Changing World. The course of international relations, it is basically about what is international relations. In this particular lecture, we will discuss what is international relations, the meaning of international relations, and the emergence of international relations as a discipline, and the various issues that are there in the course or in the discussion of international relations. As a discipline of the course, that is the first topic, international relations as a discipline. So IR as a discipline, IR, the shorter version of the terminology international relations, that is as a discipline is what it is, a systematic developed branch of knowledge. So in that we particularly discuss the issues or the question related to why we study international relations, what we study in international relations, and how we study international relations. So the first topic, the first question that we are going to discuss is the why we study international relations. So as I know, the international relations is what? It's a kind of interaction or the relationship among the members of the international community of a nation state. So that nation is a very important element, important actors or the primary actors in the discourse or in the study of international relations. So the interaction among the nations, among the state, it is the first thing that we study. And also that the behavior of the international system through the study of international conflict, cooperations, competitions, and struggle for power among the state. International relations, as the various political thinkers or the experts on international relations define international relations as international politics includes analysis of political relations and problem of peace among nations. It studies struggle for power among nations as it is defined by Morgenthau. International relations involve the study of relation among states. It includes all interstate relation, political and non-political. Field of study focused upon process by which state adjust their national interest. Study of rivalry among nations and the condition and institution which restructure this relationship. Another important scholar defined international relations as subject concerned with the state system. So when we analyze that sort of definition given by the various experts on international relations, we find that there are two categories of defining or conceptualizing the concept or the discipline of international relations. One is the relationship among the state, and that is too narrowly the relationship on the basis of the political relationship only. The state political relations, political engagement with the rest of the state in the nation-state system. So the Morgenthau and other similar political thinkers or the international relation theories, they define that concept of international relations from the very narrowly defined conception of international relations. The other category of the theorists or the experts on international relations, they take international relation as a broader conception or the broader perspective of the relationship among the state in the international system. So in that they define international relations, they define the state, their behavior in a broader perspective by including political as well as the non-political issues, the non-political perspective, the non-political dimension of international relations or the state relation with the other state in the nation-state system. For example, economic relation, for example, cultural dimension or the cultural relations among the states, and so on and so forth. So that is what the broader conception of international relation or international politics. And the important things that is another important things which we can find out from the various theories or the various definition given by the political thinker is the international relation is also the study of the various international organizations, their structure. Also, we also include in that particular conception or the definition of the international relations. So IR as a discipline, why we study international relations, from that perspective also, why we study international relations, that will come later on. The international relations and international politics, there are two terminology that we use interchangeably when we define or when we study international relations. So from the definition that we have already discussed, from there we can find out that there is a kind of distinction between international relations and international politics. So when we talk about international politics, that only limited the study of international relations by the political relations of the state with the rest of the state in the nation state system. So it is a kind of narrow definition or the narrow conception of international relations. The second aspect of international relations, as we discussed, that apart from that political interaction of the state, the other conception or the other relationship of the state are also taken into considerations while we discuss international politics or international relations. So when we include political, economic, cultural relations, then it define that sort of relation among the state as international relations. So clearly there are a kind of a distinction between international relations and international politics, that the political aspect define international politics and the non-political plus political aspect is defining the international relations. So there is a, after that the phase of globalization, that is after 1990s onwards, there is a kind of change in the perspective or in the understanding of international relations that we call as the global politics, the terminology that we use, global politics. So that from international politics, international relations, now we define in the changing contemporary world, we define the discourse of international relations as global politics. As we know, the globalization also impacted the very nature of the international relations by including not only the state, rather the non-state actors as well. That is, for example, the environmental issues, for example, multinational companies, MNCs, IGOs, NGOs. So there are political actors, that is the state actors, and also there are non-state actors also that influencing the discussion, debate, and the nature of international relations, and because of that we called it the global politics. So there are three terminology rather we use to define the relationship among the state. One is international politics, limited to the political relation among the state. International relations, that is IR, political as well as the non-political factors also we take into account to define the nature of the international relations. And now the global politics, because the emergence of non-state actors in the discourse and in the definition of international relations. So coming back to the first topic, first things, that is why we study international relations, the three important questions that which is there as why we study international relations, how we study international relations, and how and why we study international relations. So why we study, what we study, and how we study international relations, that actually define the basic discipline of the international relations. So why we study international relations is a very common things, that by by the categorization of four or five factors, we can define define or we can understand why we study international relations. The first is the common man or the common person, how he or she interact or how he or she influenced by the perspective of international relations or the discourse of international relations. For example, in the contemporary era, after that, the Westphalia Treaty that we will discuss in the next classes, that from there, there's a modern conception of state system emerge, and the impact of that kind of state system or the nation state system, we every individuals nowadays living or belonging to a particular state. So when one particular person wants to travel or wants to go to other state in the nation state system, or their daily life are also being influenced by the various factors which is happening outside his or her own state. So that actually influencing the individuals, that is the one important factors why we study international relations. So in that way we have to know, or we need to know the dynamics of international relations, what is going on in the international system. So that is the first things or the first factors why we study international relation. The another important factors which is given by the various other scholars, including the George Sorensen in his book Introduction to International Relations, he defined or he categorized the 5 important factors. Because of that reason we study international relations. So that one, the first is the security, or the 5 values he defined to know or to understand why we study or why we need to know about the international relations, or why state interact with the rest of the state in international relations. So there are certain social values or social values which every state needs to protect or to uphold, so that the state can fulfill its own responsibility towards the peoples or the citizens of that particular state. One is what? The first is the security. The security is the first values, the first requirement that state needs to fulfill. Second is the freedom. Third is order. Fourth is justice. And the last one is the welfare of the citizens or the welfare of the human being living in that particular state or the particular geographical area of that particular state. So the first is the security is the first important thing that state needs to be state needs to be upheld in relation to the citizens of that particular state. So the security of the individuals as well as the security of the nation, that is the primary duty of every state, and because of that reason state needs to get engaged in the international system. Another important thing, that is the freedom of the individuals as well as the freedom of the nations, which means that the independent foreign policy, independent engagement, and also the freedom and protection of the citizen is the another important things that we need to that the state needs to be upheld, so that the state security, individual security, state freedom, individual's freedom, and third is the justice, fourth is the order. So the state needs to be create or needs to have the common sort of values related that create order and justice in the international system. So that we call as the international society approach given by Henry Bull. So in that there is, for example, international law, for example, international organization, for example, diplomacy, the common values of diplomacy, for example, the common values of human rights. So there are various kind of order and justice, the values which constitute the order and justice in the international system. So every state needs to engage just to uphold the basic criteria or the basic components that constitute the conception of order and justice, that is international order and international justice. So because of that reason also a state needs to get engaged in international system. The last one is the welfare kind of things. The welfare is the another important responsibility of the state. So that welfareism, that is means the eradication of poverty, creating employment, and other state engagement in the welfare kind of things. So the economy of the state, more particularly in the globalized era, is no more work in isolation. Rather, the state economy now interacted or get more interacted rather in the globalized world. So the national economy now is connected with the global economy. So for that matter also, state need to engage in the nation state system. So these are the basic reasons or the important reasons why we need to study international relations. To know the foreign policy of the country, to how foreign policy are made, how state interact with that, why state interact with the other state in the nation state system. These are the many questions, these are the many issues. Because of that reason, we study international relations. What we study international relations, that is what the relations among the states, political relations, and also the non-political relations, for example economic relation and other sort of relations are also we discuss in the discourse of international relations. So why we study international relations, we have already discussed. Now the what we study international relations, that actually define the nature of international relations. So the first things what we study in international relations, there are certain important things that we are going to discuss now. First is what the nation are the primary actors. However, non-state actors are also important in the era of globalization. So the nations are, which means that the international relations referring the relationship among the state, or relations or the state behaviors in the nation state system. So it is the state which is primary, considered as a primary actors. But as we discussed that from 90s onwards, we also living in a era of globalization. So that non-state actors also emerge because of the process of globalization. Now the we are living in a global village. People are more interconnected. Anything's happening in any part of the world, we are affected by that. So our day-to-day life, our economy, our political setup, our political factors more are now decided by the factors or by the things which is happening outside the nation as well. So in that way, there are various non-state actors also. Because of that interconnectedness and also the impact of globalization, non-state actors are also playing a very important role. So that are also now considered as an important actors in the international system. But again, the state are the main actors. Another important thing that we study international relations is the national interest is the primary objective. State interact with the rest of the state because just to protect its own national interest. So as we discussed that why we study international relations. So security of the state, security of the people, rights of the protection of the freedom and rights of the nation and its own citizens, welfare of their own citizens, and also that the creating or maintaining the international order, international justice, that values to protect that. So the core values of the state to protect the physical boundary of the state, the political freedom of that particular state, and also the protection and the welfare of their own citizens as well. So that core values is considered as a national interest, and that is the primary objective. To protect that sort of interest of the nation is the primary objective. And because of that reason, state interact with the rest of the state in the nation state system. Another important things that we study in the conception or in IR as a discipline is the conflict is the condition of international politics or international relations, which means that there is a conception that we call it the zero-sum game. So the interest of the state is the important things, and the protection of the interest is at the cost of others. So which means that the structure, that is the state system, is working on anarchical basis. So the conflict is bound to happen in the nation state system. So the conflict is the condition, that is the anarchical system, anarchy, conflict, clash of interest. These are the things which is happening in the setup of the nation state system. So this is the another important things that we study, that is the conflict is the condition of international politics. So in order to avoid conflict, or in order to protect the national interest, the power is the means, power is the mechanism by that the state is trying to protect the national interest or the interest of that particular state. So the power is the means and power is the ends also. That power means once the state is a powerful state, for example the superpower, major powers, they easily can protect their own interest. They can prevail their own will, own objective in the international system. That, as in the history of international relations, we know about that is the Cold War conflict, superpower rivalries, major powers. So that is what the power is the means, and power is also the objective of every state in the nation state system. So the conception of balance of power management, these are the things that we will discuss later on in the later classes. But as a whole, or in nutshell, power is the important things that we study in international system. International politics or international relations also study or also include the conflict resolution among the nations, which means that there are various institutions, for example, United Nations, for example, NATO, for example, various other multilateral organizations also, or international organizations also, or various theories also that we also discuss in the international relations that we call as the mechanism of conflict resolutions and also the power management in international relations. Another important thing that we discuss in the discourse of international relation is that the nature of international relation is continuous and also dynamic in nature, which means that the factors which is prevail in the nation state system are changing, and also it is dynamic in nature, which means that and the state needs to adjust themselves in that particular changing world, that which means that it is not static, rather it is more dynamic in nature. In addition to that means, so the 2 points that we have cleared, first is what, why we study international relations, and what we study in international relations. Now how we study international relations, and after that we will go for importance of international relations, why importance of the international relations, and also that refer the scope of international relations as well. So how we study international relations, that is what in that particular course we also have the various theories just to understand international politics. So the various theories that we have, or the methods or the approaches that we apply to understand international politics. So and that actually make a kind of scientific analysis of that particular discipline that we called as international relations. So through that scientific methods or the conceptualized methods that we call as the methodology or the approaches to international relations. So in that we have the list of theories or the various theories that are to or that are helping to understand international relations. So that first we take it as a classical approach, and another non-classical or the modern conception of approach in international relations to define or to discuss or to analyze international relations or the dynamics of international relations. So the classical approaches, that is realism, liberalism, that we study international relations or that we apply to understand international relations. So that in detail we will discuss that later on. The realistic approach consider state system is anarchical and state are the primary actors, and the protection of the interest of the state is the primary goal of every state, and there is a kind of clash of interest of the states in the nation state system, which means that the theory is based on the conception that we call as the zero sum game, which means that the protection of or the interest of state is at the cost of the interest of the other state. So there is a kind of clash of state, and there is a no superstructure that can check the brutish or the selfish behavior of the state in the nation state system. So there is a kind of anarchy prevail in the nation state, and states policy makers are advised to enhance their own political power and military power. Thereby the state would be in a position to protect its own national interest. So there is a realistic approach which is based on self-help, self-survival, and another important approach is that is the liberal approach to international relations. So in that, again, the state is the primary actors, and state there is a kind of clash of interest, but there is a possibilities as well. Through that, the state can engage in a cooperative manner in the nation state system. For example, there are common objective of every state. For example, security of the state, welfare of the state, economic development of the state. So in that way, there is a kind of possibilities to cooperate the state with the rest of the state in the nation state system. For example, multilateral organization, for example, international organization, international law, and various other organizations or the blocks as well, economic blocks as well. With that, the state can engage in a cooperative manner just to protect the common objectives of every state in the nation state system. So this is another interpretation to understand the dynamics of international relations. Another approach that developed in the course of international relations, or to understand international relations, that we call as the critical theories that emerge uh, later on, that is after the Cold War conflict. So the main argument of that critical approach to international relations is that it is not only the study of the state which is important, rather there are various other things that is also equally important. For example, the various groups living in a particular state, the various other culture identity issues which are equally important, and that also influence the discourse of international relations. So that particular critical approach, post constructivism, so these are the various other Marxist approach. So there are various approach also that we will discuss later on, just to understand the concept of or the dynamics of international relations. So the last is the first, we discuss why we study international relations, and we also discuss what we study international relations, and third one is how to study international relations, that is the various approach that to understand the dynamics of international relations. The another important things or the components of that particular topic, that is the IR as discipline, is the importance and the significance. After reading that, what we can understand of international relations, so that we call as the importance or the significance of that study, which means that the scope of international relations. So international relation is referring international system, that is the world order, which means that every state is equal participant in the nation state system, but there is a kind of distribution of power, and that distribution of power is not equal in nature. So that certain states are more powerful, certain states are less powerful, certain states are weak in compared to the major power. So that what world order is actually prevail, what kind of order is there in the nation state system, that is the thing that we study in international relations. So that help to understand the structure of the international system. Another thing that we study international relations, that is the issue of foreign policy. What are the factors that actually constitute in making of the foreign policy, and also the problem and the challenges of diplomacy, and diplomacy as a means to protect the national interest. So another things which is related to that diplomacy and foreign policy is the protection of the national interest. So the national interest is the basic objective of every state. To protect that, it is the primary duty of the state, and because of that reason only, the state is engaged with the rest of the state in the nation state system. In addition to that, to protect national interests, the another important issues that we study in international relations is the geopolitics and geostrategies, which means that state, the geographical area, the geographical boundaries, and the geographical factors is actually influencing the political discourse and the policy making process of the any particular state. So geopolitics and geostrategy are the another important things that we study in the international relations. In addition to that, the international institutions, international governmental organization, international non-governmental organization, civil society groups, multinational companies, international law, these are the another dimension that we study in the discourse of international relations. In addition to that, the various alliances, for example, we have the example of SAARC, we have the example of BRICS, we have the example of CETO, we have the example of NATO, example of the alliances that we also study in the discourse of international relations. War and peace is another important factors, another important components or element or issues that we discuss in the discourse of international relations, which means that war is the strategy. State is having the primary responsibility to protect their own citizens and also to protect their own interest, and war is considered as a kind of means to protect that kind of freedom of the state and also the national security of that particular state. So war is a kind of strategy to protect their own freedom. So, and also the state also having the responsibility to create international peace. So we have the example of various organizations, for example, United Nations and many other organizations also, and also the various theoretical aspect or the theories of international relations that also is there to protect and to maintain international peace and security. Another important things that we study in the discourse of international relations is the international political economy. So in the first uh, starting phase of the international relations, the political aspect, that is war, peace, other diplomacy, that were the important things that we study in the international relations. But after that, the process of globalization, the common objective of every state is what is to enhance the economic activities, economic interest of every state. That the question of poverty, the question of economic development considered as an important component in the discourse of international relations. So that is what that we call as the international political economy. That is one of the important economic approach to understand the economic relations among the state in the nation state system. The another important things that we also study in the international relation is the area studies. So the various cultural aspect, economic aspect, geographical aspect, these are the things which that is the another important thing that we study in the discourse or in the discipline of international relations. And finally, we also discuss now, which is more contemporary in nature, after that end of the Cold War and the starting phase of the process of globalization, that is the concept of human security. Now we not only focusing the security of the state, rather we also focusing on the security of the human being as well, which is more non-political in nature and non-military in nature. So the climate, the concept, the issue of climate change, the issue of eradication of poverty, the issue of identity, protection of identity, and the protection of the culture. So the human security, the security of the human being is now also considered as an important components of the study of international relations. So though that we study in the discourse of international relations. So in conclusion, we can say in that we discuss, after reading that international relations as a discipline, we can understand the international politics in the globalized era, how globalization is impacting the discourse of international relations, what are the various actors in international relations, and various theoretical approaches to understand international relations and also to know the world system or world order system. And finally, the basic objective of this course is to develop the critical thinking and analytical skills and the ability to understand the evolving international dynamics. With that, we discuss three important things to understand IR as a discipline. First is why we study international relations, what we study international relations, and how we study international relations. Thank you very much.